Today I F up by allowing my husband to come to dinner at my boss's house. This actually took place a couple of years ago. I had just gotten a brand new job that I was really excited about. So I was delighted when my boss, who I had been trying to establish a rapport with, invited me and my husband over to her home for dinner. Well, mostly delighted. My husband is, well, he's the sweetest, but he has a history of doing really dumb shit. Because of this, I was worried about him coming along. By the time the day of the dinner arrived, I had become so anxious about it that I actually floated the idea by my boss that I wasn't sure if he would be able to make it. She was clearly taken aback and responded, "Oh no, I really hope he can. I have a dinner for 3 all ready to go." Upon seeing her dismay, I assured her that I was sure he would find a way to be there. Well, we made it over to her apartment on time, and things actually started out really, really well. It was just the 3 of us, which surprised me somewhat, but made me a little less concerned about my husband, as crowds really tend to bring out his unpredictability. I had just started to finally relax and was a couple of bites into a deliciously cooked steak when things took a horrible, horrible turn. My boss had just stepped into the kitchen to check on dessert when I noticed something odd out of the corner of my eyes. It was one of those things where you know something strange is happening in your peripheral, but you're not sure what. You have to look over and focus your gaze to really comprehend it. I looked over at my husband and saw him holding his steak in his hand, hovering it just an inch or 2 above his plate. Before I had a chance to fully comprehend what I was seeing and verbalize something that might have saved all of us from the coming horror, he threw his steak, baseball style, across the room straight into the dining room window. It hit the window, making a loud noise, and slowly slid down. Now, my husband does dumb I already told you that. But he's not a crazy person. Usually when he does dumb I at least understand what he's thinking. There's usually some semblance of rhyme or reason to the dumb In this case, I was just dumbfounded. I couldn't believe my eyes. I couldn't wrap my head around what was going on. I stared at him with what must have been the most confused look, and watched as he stared back at me, an expression of utter horror painted across his face. I couldn't make any sense of what was happening, but I also didn't have time to try. I heard the footsteps of my boss coming to see what the sound was. It suddenly sunk in that it didn't matter why he did what he did it. And we were all about to come face to face with a very awkward situation. I could feel the anger flush through my face. For a brief moment, I contemplated trying to help my husband get out of this. But no, this was his dumb bed and he could lie in it. Not like there was any possible recovery anyway. My boss walks in and sees the steak lying on the windowsill. There's the longest, most awkward pause where we all just sit there frozen. My boss and I are staring at my husband, forcing the ball into his court, as the cringe just hangs in the air like an ocean fog. He finally manages to mutter some incoherent garbage about being a klutz, and even tries to get me to back him up. I leave his out to dry in the deafening silence. He makes a poor attempt at cleaning the window and retrieves his steak. Mercifully, my boss asks me a question about work, and we both dive eagerly into conversation. We all resume the rest of the evening pretending that he isn't there, a sort of unspoken agreement among us that this is the only way to move forward. As soon as we got to the car, my husband turned into a nervous chatterbox trying to explain himself. Turns out the dumbass didn't like the way his steak was cooked. Rare. And get this, he thought the window was open. My husband, ladies and gentlemen, tried to chuck his steak out a 3-story window. He thought that was a reasonable solution to being served an undercooked steak. A year or so later, my boss hosted a Christmas party for the company at her newly built home. My best friend, Jenny, was my +1. Note. My husband told this Today IF Up from his perspective a couple of years ago, and it was a popular post. Someone suggested I should tell it from my perspective. Hope our discomfort brings a little joy to you fine Redditors. Update. Okay guys, I probably overplayed the dumb angle. Yeah, he's known for acting without thinking things through, but this one moment does not represent the norm. From my perspective, in this moment, he looked like a loony bin character gone mad, which is what makes the story so funny in retrospect. Go read his perspective, and his actions look at least a little less crazy. My husband is a fun-loving, kind husband and father who makes life very fun. And no, my husband is not on the spectrum or crazy, although I get that that may seem like a valid conclusion if all you know is this one event. The usual dumb is more of your everyday impulsiveness, like immediately saying the slightly inappropriate thing that comes to mind. If he would have done that, it wouldn't have shocked me at all. This, of course, shocked me, because he normally doesn't do things that make him look insane. Not sure why some seem to be taking the he often does dumb to mean he often does completely insane things, when I feel like I was making the exact opposite point. Oh well, Glad that most of you got some small bit of enjoyment out of your day from the story. Also, we all have our faults. I joke about my husband not thinking things through. He jokes about my preoccupation with what others think of me, etc.